Like most people in Great Britain, I suppose I'd never heard of Gary Glitter until Rock and Roll. Was this in fact your first disc?
No, it's not. It wasn't my first disc. I'd made a few before I came up with Gary Glitter. I suppose the most successful thing I've ever done really was the Jesus Christ Superstar album, which I played a part of a high priest on it. And no need to tell you how successful that was all over the world. That was Paul Raven. That was my working name before Gary Glitter.
So what made you record Rock and Roll?
When I first met Mike Leander a couple of years ago, I think we decided that we wanted to write together. And when we wrote Rock and Roll Part 1 and Part 2, there was a lot of other things there as well, you know. So Rock and Roll Part 1 and Part 2 were just the beginning of it.
Most people would say that you may be fearful that this record may be a one-off hit and that Gary Glitter will fade into oblivion after this. So you have other stuff. Is it in the same vein as Rock and Roll?
In the same vein in so much as we keep with the heavy type of drum sound and so on. The one-hit thing, I mean, we hope we're going to get more hits, but who can say? You know, it could happen to could have happened to Mark Bolan, that he only had one hit, but he's been going on. So let's hope we can do the same thing.
The title Rock and Roll is not really synonymous with the sound. The record has been likened to Burundi Black and also to US Bond. Why the title Rock and Roll?
Well, the title went with that riff that we'd got, but I think people make a lot of mistakes with the word rock and roll. Rock and roll is not doesn't mean to say it has to be like 1950 rock and roll. In America particularly, they use the word rock and roll for anything that's got that kind of rhythm and blues touch anyway. A lot of people have said US Bonds. I suppose there's a similarity, but we didn't go out of our way to be like that. I mean, that's it.
Do you think it'll be difficult trying to reproduce the sound of rock and roll on stage? Because after all, it is a very sort of heavy studio type thing, isn't it?
No, it's not really a heavy studio type thing. That's what you think. We can get exactly the same sound on the road, exactly the same sound. It's just that we use a different kind of tuning than most other people.
What plans have you got for the future?
Well, we're doing an album at the moment. The record, I believe, is doing quite well in America. So I think we're going there. But to start with, we just want to get a nice show on the road here.
The first time I remember hearing about you, Gary, was under another name of Paul Raven, and you appeared on the original version of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Mike Leander, who's my co-writer, he was involved in the beginning in the Jesus Christ Superstar thing. And Tim Rice happened to like me and said that, you know, he would like me to have a part. So, and I thought it would be nice to do, you know. And I thought the whole idea of doing it was great, because the music, I think, is incredible.
What were you doing before that? Because it seemed as though you sprung to overnight fame. It's not true.
No, it's not. No. Well, overnight in so much as it took me 12 years, really. I made my first record when I was 15, which was probably about the worst record that was ever released in the history of the record industry. I think I could probably get the award for that, if there is such a worse record. And and it was called Alone in the Night, and which was kind of strange, really, because I was left completely alone in the night after that one. Then I went on to do some things for George Martin. He and Ron Richards, they produced me for a while, of which I very nearly made it in 1963 or 62, I think it was, with a song called Tower of Strength. And then I went to Germany, because there was like the Beatles, Stones, the whole group thing was happening here, and I've never really fitted in as a group into a group. I've always either had a band, a big band behind me, but I've always been basically a solo or an independent type of person. And unless you had a northern accent, you know, you couldn't, I mean, there was no way, you couldn't get any work down here at all. And so I went to Germany, And I went there for a month originally, and I stayed there for 5 years. I came back on the odd occasion to make the odd record or the odd flop. But again, I made a couple of records with Mike Leander, and he saw me on the stage in Germany, and he saw the kind of reaction I was getting. And he said, you can't find material like that. He said, you've got to start writing your own songs. You've got to start, it's got to be an extension of yourself, you know. And I said, I can't. There's no way can I write a song. I said, I just can't sit down and write a song. And then I went back to Germany, and I was thinking about it. And I thought, to hell with it, I'll try. I came back and I said, look, let's get together. I said, that's it, I'm going right back to the beginning of my own roots. We came up with Rock and Roll Parts 1 and 2. I didn't know I loved you till I saw you rock and roll in the same day.
How did the name Gary Glitter come about? Because I mean, it's so outrageous.
A few friends of mine, quite well-known people, which I'm a bit reluctant to mention who they are anyway. During watching Rock Around the Clock on television, we started thinking about the names of the British pop singers of the early 60s, like Billy Fury and Marty Wilde and Vince Eager, you know. And I said, I want to be Gary Glitter.
Are you sort of legally Gary Glitter now?
Oh yeah,
You've
I mean I'm
changed
legally
it on the
Gary
whole
Glitter.
hog.
I haven't gone as far as changing it by default, but you were going to jump in there.
No.
What did you have on the tip of your tongue?
No, I was just about to move on, actually. I was about to say, when...
I think you want another fruit drop, don't you?
I don't know quite how to take that. The first time that I saw you live was, in actual fact, at Wembley, and you were knocked a lot then by the press. They said that your band was lousy, and that the only thing, in fact, good about the act was yourself and your stage show, but the band were not. Are you still finding that the band are getting knocked?
I'm fairly a hardened professional to a certain extent. I mean, because I've had to work in pubs everywhere to make a living, so the knocks, when I get knocks, I think it's great, you know, because the harder I get knocked, the more I fight back, which is nice, you know. But the band, to suddenly be confronted with backing a pop, you know, first of all backing what was number 1 or number 2 record, but to suddenly go out on that stage, and I think most people were unearthed at Wembley, for an example. I mean, see what was the official figure, something like about 60,000 people. I must admit, I felt pretty nervous too. I'm always nervous anyway before I go on. The band, I think, have improved tremendously, as I think my music is improving. I mean, the first song you ever write, it's got to be pretty naive anyway, and I think you get better, but sometimes perhaps you get worse, because those very early simple things are magic.
You're still, to a certain extent, writing simple stuff anyway, because a lot of people would say Rock and Roll Part 1 and Do You Want to Touch Me are very similar.
Very similar, but it's only a similarity in so much as that I use a similar kind of instrumentation, similar kind of sound, which is only an extension again of myself and my and Mike's ideas, you know. I mean, that's I think you'll find that the new one is slightly different. First of all, it's much more, it's more up tempo. It's not quite as cha, cha.